Could a Hollywood star really make a courtroom mistake that puts countless people at risk and get publicly scolded by a judge for it? That's exactly what happened with Blake Lively in a case that's been raising eyebrows across the internet. While celebrities often have armies of lawyers protecting them, Lively found herself on the receiving end of judicial frustration when she accidentally filed sensitive personal information, phone numbers, emails, and even bank account details, without redacting them. The irony is almost cinematic. Someone who relentlessly defends her own privacy seems to have no issue exposing others. And the fallout wasn't just legal. The online world quickly noticed, creating a perfect storm of controversy, speculation, and public discussion that only added fuel to the fire. It all began with what's called a privilege log, a standard part of litigation where attorneys list documents that are claimed to be protected under attorney-client privilege. In Blake's case, these logs included communications involving Katie Cassies and Brianna Koslow, and somewhere along the way, phone numbers and emails of people who had no connection to the case were left completely unredacted. This wasn't a minor oversight, it was publicly filed in federal court, accessible to anyone who could pull up the docket. What makes this even more shocking is the context. Blake has consistently demanded protective orders for her own personal information, including her phone numbers, addresses, and emails. Yet, in this instance, her legal team exposed the very same type of information for multiple unrelated individuals, showing a disconnect that the judge clearly couldn't ignore. The judge acted swiftly when he saw the unredacted documents, immediately ordering that these sensitive files be sealed to protect personal privacy. He pointed out that while there is usually a presumption of public access to court documents, the higher value here was protecting individuals' private information, especially when it had no relevance to the pending legal motions. Despite the clear instructions, Blake's attorneys were slow to respond, too busy entangled in disputes over privilege logs, extensions of time, and other motions. This delay allowed the exposed information to remain accessible, which meant the fallout wasn't just legal, it was public. And yet, the judge's warnings made it clear that moving forward, anyone filing documents would need to ensure phone numbers, emails, and other identifying details were properly redacted, leaving Blake's team with no excuses for further lapses. Here's where things get really dangerous. Even though the court ordered some documents sealed, many records were already live online through services like Court Listener and Pacer, platforms that allow anyone to download court filings for free. That meant the unredacted phone numbers and emails were essentially public property. Predictably, content creators and curious internet users started investigating, linking names to numbers and effectively doxing people who were never part of the lawsuit. The result? Private individuals became targets, receiving harassment and even threats from strangers who had access to their personal data. What should have been a procedural mistake suddenly escalated into a situation with real-world consequences, showing just how reckless and impactful filing errors like this can be when celebrities are involved. This wasn't the first time Blake's filings raised eyebrows. In other instances, documents included bank account numbers, emails, and even photographs of non-involved parties, including Perez Hilton's children. These filings weren't just careless. They reflected a pattern of behavior that seemed either vindictive or shockingly unaware of legal responsibility. Unlike typical filings where redaction is quick and routine, Lively's team often left sensitive data exposed, forcing the court to repeatedly intervene. Observers can't help but wonder if this was strategic, using her fans as a kind of unofficial legal army to intimidate or pressure opposing parties, or just sheer negligence. Either way, the consequences have been tangible, from public doxing to threats of violence against individuals connected to the case. The reaction from the public and other parties has been immediate and intense. Perez Hilton, for example, publicly demanded that certain photos be removed from the court docket, citing privacy concerns for his family, and emphasized that sharing images of children in legal documents is both unnecessary and dangerous. The stakes here are high. One Wayfair defendant's property was even subjected to arson, and others have received death threats as a result of sensitive information being exposed. The judge's repeated orders for redaction underscore the seriousness of the issue. emphasizing that Lively's filings weren't minor missteps, but actions with the potential for real harm. This scenario highlights how the intersection of celebrity influence, legal filings, and public access can spiral into a situation where ordinary people face real-world risks they didn't deserve. What this case really illustrates is the danger of recklessness in celebrity legal battles. Filing unredacted documents isn't just a procedural mistake, it's a potential weapon when combined with an audience eager to dig into every detail. Fans, followers, and online communities can unintentionally become part of the legal fray, exacerbating threats and harassment toward private individuals. For Blake Lively, these repeated judicial admonishments show that even stars aren't above scrutiny when it comes to protecting personal information. For the public, it's a cautionary tale about how the exposure of sensitive data in the wrong hands can have immediate, sometimes terrifying consequences, and why the court takes redactions so seriously. In the end, Blake Lively's courtroom saga serves as a stark reminder of the responsibilities that come with both fame and legal power. Her repeated exposure of sensitive information forced judicial intervention, put innocent people at risk, and sparked a wave of online scrutiny and speculation. The judge's firm stance and insistence on redactions finally sets clear boundaries, but the broader conversation remains. When celebrities navigate the legal system carelessly, who ultimately pays the price? For the individuals affected, the consequences are very real, and for the public, it's a cautionary tale about the dangerous intersections of fame, law, and online attention. So, what do you think? Was the judge right to scold Blake so publicly? Let me know your thoughts below, and make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss updates on this story. Blake Lively didn't stop at a few accidental disclosures. She filed what's called an omnibus motion to compel, containing over 2,000 pages and hundreds of attachments. Each of these documents had to be reviewed for sensitive personal information, which meant that her team, and ultimately Blake herself, were being forced to comb through thousands of pages to redact phone numbers, emails, and even bank account information. The sheer volume made it almost inevitable that some data would slip through, but it also highlighted a pattern of recklessness. When celebrities overwhelm the court with excessive filings, mistakes become more than just clerical errors. They become public hazards. The judge had to issue repeated directives, making it clear that even high-profile litigants aren't exempt from basic rules of privacy protection, and that accountability matters no matter who you are. Even with these judicial warnings, Blake's filings seemed defiant. In some cases, she argued that information was already public, using that as justification for including personal details in court documents. But the court made a distinction. Just because something exists online doesn't mean it's acceptable to add it to a federal docket where it's easily accessible by anyone, including those with malicious intent. One glaring example involved photographs of Perez Hilton's children, included unnecessarily in filings, sparking outrage and legal pushback. This wasn't a matter of misunderstanding rules, it was a pattern of disregarding the impact of public disclosure. The judge's repeated scoldings underscored the need for responsibility and the potential dangers when private information enters a legal case without proper protection. The exposure of sensitive information didn't just remain a courtroom issue, it spilled into the real world, creating tangible risks. Threats of arson, kidnapping, and harassment were reported against individuals connected to the litigation, including third-party witnesses and defendants. Some of this chaos was fueled by fan communities, which can sometimes act as unofficial extensions of a celebrity's influence, investigating and pressuring individuals whose information has been exposed. What may have been intended as a legal maneuver or oversight became a dangerous situation, showing how high-profile cases can inadvertently endanger private citizens.